This is episode 87 of our Road to Unicum. Today we take a second look at the Lynx 6x6. This is the Tier 8 French wheeled light tank in the tech tree, and we're going to look at a pair of Tier 9 battles. First up is Malinovka, and then we're going to look at Sand River. Now, I was actually really excited to play this map in regular mode, not in counter mode, because I wanted to see if I would be able to spot effectively from the G6 bush, right? I've talked about the power of this. Now, the part of the issue is that this Tier 9 EBR 90, he's YOLO scouting across the field, and even if I hadn't fired, he was going to spot me. I took a quick snapshot because why not? And then this second, snapshot which misses. One very common complaint about the wheeled vehicles, especially the Tier 9 and Tier 10, is that they're too fast. Actually, I'll tell you from a poll on my channel that around 1,400 people voted, the speed actually wasn't viewed as the most common or biggest problem in terms of balance for the French wheeled vehicles. I'll show you guys that poll after these two battles. Okay, so the EBR 90 has run off. I'm going to go ahead and try to make a second run up to this G6 bush. Remember, there's a mirror bush directly across from me about 200 meters away. Now, in a tracked light tank, you could spot a lot of their snipers. You can see the outer, that white ring. That's generally 445 meters worth of view range. That's the maximum spotting distance, and in every light tank I have from Tier 8 and up, I make sure that the green circle becomes the white circle, right? That you have that 445 meters of view range so you can spot anything that is possibly spottable. Of course, there are other factors like camouflage and line of sight, etc. But it's really valuable. So someone spotted this EBR. I don't know if it was the AMX 1390 or me, but at any rate, I take a shot and I hit him. That was from almost 400 meters away. Now, people are always like, oh, you can't hit EBRs or the wheeled vehicles from range. You can, you just need to lead them appropriately. And obviously that's most helpful if they're driving in a straight line, which is exactly why as I'm pulling away here, I'm wiggling back and forth a little bit to try to, it messes with people's aiming reticle. Are you going to zigzag left? You're going to zag right. And that movement causes confusion, can cause people to delay pulling their trigger, and it also induces bloom on their aiming reticle. Now, this is a thing which is really scary. I come up to the bush and I'm spotted immediately. Now, the prior time when I was running away, I think I was only shot at once. I'm going to get shot at a couple times here. Right? In this case, the EBR 90 did, in fact, hit my wheel with high explosive rounds, so that doesn't penetrate, it only deals a little bit of damage. A little bit of a scary moment there. I wasn't expecting to get spotted going for the third time out to the G6 bush, but now that I've done this a couple times, like, I can't go back and try that again, right? It's going to be too predictable, and there's something that's spotting me, whether it's the EBR 90 or possibly their T92. I think I was getting outspotted by their T92, and you'll see him later. What it looks like he's spotting in one of the bushes passively out south of the lake, so on the west side of the lake, south of where their EBR 90 is. Now, their Lynx 6x6 had actually gone up to the D7 ridge, which is a really powerful point. You just need to be careful about getting spotted there and shot at by snipers and by arty, right? So coming up here to this ridge, you'll notice I'm going to get spotted. And that T29, notice right before Sixth Sense ticked off, his aiming reticle, his barrel shifted and was starting to point right at me. So somehow I was spotted. I'm not sure by whom or by what. Notice I'm moving laterally. I was moving left to right laterally, and that's in case their arties are aiming at me. They're going to have to take a pretty good guess at where I am in terms of my east-west movement. I'm going to move back up here. I don't think it was the T29 that spotted me. It was most likely the T92s in a bush somewhere in field. But I'm going to come up here again, and something's shooting up. It looks like the tank's behind me, the M41. M4A1 Revelarice and the M4190 are shooting at that T54 Mod 1. And again, I am moving back and forth intentionally laterally to where their arties are, and I'm making them have to guess, right? Again, this will throw off their aiming reticle. It creates indecision. And the T54 Mod 1, it's really important to determine at any point in time which tank is the one that's providing your team the most problems. So the T54 Mod 1 is a position where he can spot our tanks up on hill, and obviously that's bad because they can get shot at by arty. Notice that when I pulled the trigger on that T54 Mod 1, there were those 4 or 5 pine trees that were just in between us. So I didn't lose my camouflage from those trees that are on the other side, and that's why he didn't spot me. It's a really good idea if you can to fire when they're crossing the bushes. Now our Woozy 131, his initial thought here is pretty good. I thought he was going for the ditch. You'll see me do this later, but he doesn't stop there. He drives up on the ridge. So far so good. Now right here, this is where he's YOLOing. He's going too deep, and he's going to get smacked by their Waffenträger. Right, so he went in too deep. Now he did do something really valuable. He spotted the tanks that were sniping over around the C5, D4, D5 area, and I'm going to go and show you what he should have done. Getting into this ditch is a really good thing to do. It can be dangerous to try to come here early if their tanks just come up and over and suicide kill you. But if you've got snipers behind you, like I've got this M4A1 Revelarice, T29, or M4190, you can come up here, and even if you get spotted, if you keep them proxy lit or spotted through the bush like I did, because the Waffenträger did not spot me until I fired my gun. Right, I'm telling the team that already did a great job there. So that very dangerous Waffenträger in terms of his gun is off the map, and I can move up behind these bushes here. Even though I have great view range, I can spot from here. And what's really cool is, so this T29, we'd seen him earlier, I still had high explosive loaded because I'm looking for their Lynx and their EBR. Right, because I'm going to take out those light tanks. Usually against the heavy, I don't bother loading high explosive because the only way you're going to be able to reliably penetrate is if you have the shot on their rear. It just so happened the T29 was sticking his butt out, so I had the shot, and it landed exactly where I was aiming and did a full pen. But generally speaking, against heavies, I find it far more reliable to go ahead and just load up the APCR silver ammo. It's more important to do 240 damage consistently than maybe 320 if you get a penetration. Now, obviously, I can't keep poking at C29. He's going to see me. I'm too close. The other thing to keep in mind is to watch the action that's going on up on the hill. Right, their EBR 90 is up there. We've got some tanks going up in hills, our Leo and our AMX 1390, but they're super beat up. And I stop here. I wasn't spotted when I fired that first shot on the Sturr Mill, and because of that, I decided to just sit there and wait and take another shot. Now, what's going to happen up here on top of hill? Like, I'm trying to anticipate what's going to happen, right? And this is why, when we talk about Unicum play or super Unicum play, the biggest part of it is not getting tunnel vision and predicting outcomes on the hill. Now, part of the problem is both of our friendly tanks up on hill are one-shottable, and sure enough, both of them get one shot. And this is part of the nasty thing about facing a wheeled vehicle 1v1. Because they're so fast, they can use their speed to dictate when you're going to see each other. And because if they know where you are, they can aim their guns at you. The wheeled vehicles have super fast turret traverse and pretty accurate guns on the move. Now you may be wondering, what am I doing here? Well, our tanks are overcommitted to the southwest part of the map. I actually, in the vast majority of cases, don't recommend pushing on the southwest corner of the map. It's too much of a funnel, and even if you get to where the M4190 is, you can't push straight up the one lane if their tanks are smart. Now look, this is exactly what I wanted. Their EBR 90, which is that dangerous tier 9 tank, far more mobile than me. I was waiting to get the first shot advantage, sitting in the bush patiently, and he was 3-shottable to me, potentially 2-shottable if I rolled really high with a high explosive, but now he's either 1 or 2-shottable. And then their T92 is making a run across the field. Now that shot, you can tell I shot it, I dunked it too far behind him. I need to be leading him more than I am. He's out of my view range, and this is part of the challenge with the wheeled vehicles. You have to get pretty close. So initially I was going to just stop here in front of these bushes, see if I could spot him. But he's super low. I've been playing, for the most part, pretty carefully, in terms of like exposure, with the exception of the latter 2 runs to the G6 bush. But, that T92 gave away his location before I even had him physically spotted because he entered the cap circle. You guys always talk about don't enter the cap circle unless you're actually trying to cap. Like, why would you want to give away your position? And then once I had him spotted, that gave plenty of our arties, the 2 arties in the corner, to aim for one of them to hit him. Now, I'm anticipating their EBR 90 or their Lynx is going to make a run for our arties, especially since that T92 spotted me. And sure enough, I guessed correctly, and the EBR 90 and I exchanged shots. And because that's the second time I hit him, he's now 1-shottable for me. I can tell he was heading toward the rock, waited there until he bumped into it. Easy kill shot. And so now, and I'm still in pretty good shape here, over half of my hit points. And we can see that their Lynx 6x6 is where he should be. That's where I would be in his case. To counterspot the M4190 is sitting in those bushes at C1 because there's also a little ridge there. But he may have fired on the M4190. And at any rate, their arties should have been most concerned about supporting, or I should say countering our tanks that were pushing north along the 1-2 lanes. I got plenty of hit points here, and the M4A1 Revelarice who hits him, and now the C29 is one-shottable for me. That was weird with the aiming reticle, by the way, because I think that must have been lag, because my reticle is off to the left, and then all of a sudden it snapped over to the right. Don't worry, I'm not cheating. As you can tell, because I've been typing in chat throughout the battle, this is in fact a real-time recording using NVIDIA Share. For the most part, I prefer to have these just to make sure that people can never accuse me of cheating, because this is a real-time recording. So racked up about 3.2 K in damage, or M4190. He was in a more of a, until the mid to late game, he was in a more kind of snipey oriented spot, that little hill overlooking the water, which was totally fine. You know, he's got a large tank, and that particular tank has a good gun, but it's a big bloated target. And so one thing that I've noticed, you know, I've been looking at the tank curves. The tank curves have started to flatten out quite a bit for the tier 6 AMD 178B. And for this Lynx 6x6, the EBR 90 and EBR 105 are significantly outperforming the typical win rate for players in those tanks. And then what I've seen is that a lot of the light tanks that are tracked that are big bloated whales, so like the M41 Bulldog, the brand new M41D, etc., or the harder to play light tanks like the HWK-12, that's the tier 8 German tank, which has horrid shell velocity and is made out of paper mache. Players have really struggled with those. Now, this tier 9 Sand River battle, I should mention the Progetto. Notice I took a rushed shot. It's okay, like, you know, it's really important if you've got a shot just to take it. And he was going to spot me, but I was quickly going to be moving behind this ridge. And since I'm spotting along this ridge, I'm active scouting, they're going to spot me eventually, right? So if you have a low risk shot, even if it's low chance to hit, just fire. Pull the trigger, keep your gun hot. Super important principle. And then, you know, obviously put yourself in position to take good crossing shots. Now, I had the high explosive loaded. You know, had I known the Panther was going to be the one crossing there, then I would have gone ahead and switched to the APCR. It is so much more reliable. You can see one of their arties is firing near me. He's trying to guess where I'm going to go. And that's one of the nice things about having the wheel vehicles. The forward and reverse acceleration is really fast. And, you know, using your movement, you can kind of throw off your opponent's ability to aim at you. Alrighty, now I do need to be careful about that Progetto. You know, obviously he's got 3 shots in his auto reloader, which could, you know, effectively take off the vast majority of my hit points. And you need to be careful. You can proxy spot, you know, tanks on the side of the hill, and I need to be careful because, you know, once I'm proxy spotted, even as I'm driving away here, it's potentially a time when their arties could shoot me. And their Progetto 46 looks like he's coming over trying to peek and shoot at me. But, you know, our guys are able to brush him off. Looks like our Pantera probably shot the Progetto. Now, our team is losing pretty decisively. And I think one of the important things to recognize is you can only fix what you can fix, right? I think a lot of players, once their team starts losing, like, and this is a pretty significant hole, right? A 4-tank deficit. Sometimes players start to panic and they start to force things. So a common force action at this point would be to try to go and kill their 2 arties. It's too early in the game to do that. They still have 13 tanks alive. As a matter of fact, the most important thing that I can do here is recognize that our tanks are having a little bit of difficulty in the northeast corner of the map, right? Specifically, our Pantera is out there. I think that's with a, let's see, that's a T. I'm not sure. There's another friendly tank up there with the Pantera, but I can't tell because the names are off the edge of the map. But at any rate, what I want to do is set up for some crossing fire. So I tap that EKV. That's the second time I've shot him, right? And then he really should not be up here. This is a really good, of the tanks that precede the awesome tier 9 and 10 tech tree Swedish TDs, I found the EKV to be pretty good because the gun handles really well. The UDES has phenomenal camo and a great gun, but just as paper mache. But the EKV at any rate is not built to be a brawler. You should never get within spotting range of targets if you've got a turretless paper tank destroyer this early. There's so many other positions he could be on the map that would make sense. Now, the Pantera is alone, and I've got to stress, you've heard me talk about this before. A lot of people say, oh, follow the lemming train, run away from a weak flank, etc. You can't do that, you know, and miss opportunities, right? Like, I knew that those 3 tanks, enemy tanks, were going to be fixated on killing the Pantera, right? And they got him. And notice, by the way, I don't cross that gap where the Progetto is potentially peeking down. I go ahead and cut back to the southwest. But I was able to inflict multiple shots on those enemy tanks while they were preoccupied trying to take out the Pantera. right? And you guys have heard me say before, you can't just give up ground for free indefinitely. You should try to spot and punish them, and to the extent possible, you know, the safest thing, if you know that you're likely to lose a flank, if you know they're going to be preoccupied fighting your tanks, that's a great time to fight them. Now, this middle ridge is super dangerous to come up to early game because you can get shot at by lots of directions. As it turns out, their Progetto, he took a line I was not expecting, right? He actually came down pretty quickly down the ridge, and so I'm having to get off this ridge. By the way, you know, people have said wheeled vehicles are better at surviving jumps and drops. I've crashed a ton in wheeled vehicles, probably 3 to 4 times more, like crippling crashes, fishtailing, especially in this tank, or just flat out crashed and died. So, you know, someone was trying to make the argument in one of my previous videos, you know, when I went down the hill and I slowed down and went off the hill in Prokhorovka, I was taking a safe angle. Now these two medium tanks are totally misplaying this. What they should have done as soon as they got up to F0 and they had shots on the arties is stop there and kill the arties. Now granted, they didn't know I was there until I fired, but the moment I fired that KV-13, they should have come at me and tried to kill me. They can't just keep crossing in front of me laterally and giving me these wide open shots, right? And then our Scorpion hits a really gorgeous shot across the gap from a pretty good distance there. But you know, like players that get fixated, when they're fixated on something else, the safest time to engage them, even if the KV-13 and or the Panther came at me, I could have pulled down behind the ridge, run west into any of the ditches, and gotten away and bought time for our arties, right? And by the way, it's so funny. I've seen so many arty players complain about wheeled vehicles and they're not being a counter, and it's so like ironic to me that arty would say this because they're like the least counterable class in the game until mid to late game. So I want to show you guys the Lynx, the tank curve, and the green line here denotes the most recent data. So in this case from mid-Feb to mid-March, right? And you can see with the tank curve that on the upper end it's underperforming, on the lower end it's underperforming. In the mid-range, this largest area, most players are seeing about a 1% win rate on the Lynx, higher than the regular win rate, right? So it means that this tank is slightly better or slightly, you know, overtuned. I don't know what the right word is. You know, may need a slight nerf, etc. I don't think that this particular tank is problematic. Tier 9s and 10s, where I hear a lot of people complaining. But what was really interesting is I wanted to find out what you guys thought were the most overpowered aspect of the wheeled vehicles. And so I listed in a poll: speed, shell absorbing wheels, to accurate firing on the move. The HE is too good and enhanced auto aim, and the majority of people said shell absorbing wheels. And I think that's, like I said, definitely more of a problem with the Tier 8 premium EBR 75, and then especially with the EBR 90 and 105. But I thought people were going to be complaining about the gun being too accurate on the move or high explosive being too good. That's what I would have said, but apparently people feel differently. I'm trying to set a goal of getting to 100 patrons, and you know, even if the next 83 patrons can each only donate $1 a month, I'm looking for a broad base of support. So if you find value in these videos, I'd certainly appreciate your patronage, and it'll help to defray the cost of making these videos and the time that I sink into pulling them together. I appreciate your guys' feedback. I hear the community really around my channel has been fantastic, and I've gained a lot of learnings and insights from you guys, as well as just recognition, which I really appreciate. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to like it and subscribe to make sure you receive notifications for all of my videos. Take care.